years, the lives of many women have been ruined by 3 separate medical treatments because officials failed to listen to concerns about safety and often dismissed the complaints as women's problems. An official inquiry looked at the impact of an epilepsy treatment, pelvic mesh implants and a pregnancy test which is no longer on the market. The Health Secretary has offered a full apology to those affected and promised that lessons will be learned. Our Health Correspondent Sophie Hutchinson has more details.
Some of the tens of thousands of women and their children harmed by 3 medical treatments. For years, sometimes decades, they were dismissed and ignored when they raised serious safety concerns, according to today's review.
We have never encountered anything like this. The intensity of the suffering, the fact that these conditions lasted for decades, and the sheer scale that these interventions have done to women and their families.
Pelvic mesh, once considered the gold standard and used to treat thousands of women for urinary incontinence. But the review said, however rare, the catastrophic nature of complications meant it should only ever be used as a last resort. Those who've suffered said hearing that had been very emotional.
One minute I feel like joy that this has actually been done, the next, I'm amongst all the other women who were just very tearful because we've been through so much to try and help the women of tomorrow.
Sodium valproate is an epilepsy drug believed to have harmed 20,000 children in the UK over the decades after they were exposed to it in the womb. The review agreed with campaigners that women were still not being warned of the dangers and each must now be contacted and told of the risks.
It's just been such a long journey. I've only been involved in this 10 years. There are parents that have been campaigning about this for 20, 30 years. And all of us have had tears in our eyes when we've read the recommendations.
And the drug Primados, a home pregnancy test used in the 60s and 70s. Its manufacturer, Bayer, has always denied women's claims that it caused disabilities in unborn babies. Today, for the first time, the review said it should have been withdrawn from the market 11 years earlier than it was because of the evidence of harm.
To think that an independent review had finally actually documented that there were regulatory failures and that the drug should have actually been taken off the market in 1967. For us, that is a result that we could only dream of.
The review says the health system has been flying blind, that it doesn't know how many women and their children have been harmed. It said a database needs to be set up to track individual patients and the treatments they've received, and it's recommending financial aid and recompense for victims. It says a patient safety commissioner needs to be set up who's answerable to Parliament to listen to people's concerns.
We need to take action, and that's why we're taking forward some of the recommendations immediately, and we will consider all of the recommendations in full.
But after decades of fighting to be heard, many of these women finally feel they've had a breakthrough and now have their eyes firmly on the government to ensure there's real change. Sophie Hutchinson, BBC News.